This is Gemara Metziah Daf Mem Vav, and all the learning should bring an incredible schos for Achinu Kol Beis Yisrael that unfortunately is increasingly Nesunim Batzaro Vashivya B'Siyat Dishmaya. The Koyach HaTorah should bring only Yeshua. He says, well, as tonight's shir has been sponsored as a schos refuah shlema for Friday Miriam Batzara B'Siyat Dishmaya. The improvements should improve, and ultimately she should see a complete refuah shalema. We're holding 5 lines from the bottom, Memhei Amid Beis. And in the previous shir on the top of the Amid, we quoted a machlekes Rav and Levi, whether matbeya nasa chalipin or ein matbeya nasa chalipin. That discussion, which took us for the duration of Amid Beis, was whether the matbeya, the coin, can be the item utilized in the chalipin. That instead of giving over the handkerchief, the pen, the yarmulke, you're utilizing a coin as that vehicle. Now, says Rav Papa, 5 lines from the bottom, a almost first cousin to that shayla. Amar Rav Papa, afilu leman damer, ein matbei nasa chalipin. Even according to the opinion that says that a coin cannot be used for chalipin. It cannot effect the chalipin. Can't be the vehicle. But says Rabba, aknuye miknu bechalipin. It could be acquired via chalipin. You could acquire a coin via kinyan sudar with a chalipin. Why mideave apere lerav Nachman, like the peiros of Rav Nachman? What does that mean? Continues the Gemara. Peira lerav Nachman lavav gav deinu lav di chalipin. Even though peiros cannot be utilized as the vehicle for chalipin, yet aknu makne bechalipin tevanami loishna. A coin, a tiva, should be no difference. So says the Gemara, says Rabba, a coin should be the same as the peiros of Rav Nachman. Let's take a moment and look at Rashi. Rashi, about 10 lines to the bottom. First one is Mishakenegdai, Midei Ave Apeiros. The Rav Nachman called over Sheino Kli Karoi Peri. Anything which is not a Kli is called Peri, like Ave Chalipin, Upligi Rav Sheshes. Rav Nachman lekamon, a machlekes that we had about a week ago. B'shmaitzim, the Rav Nachman nol davka ksiv sheikli v'lo shem davar she'enay kli yoyse chalipin. Umaydahu sheikol davar shekineged akli nigne b'chalipin akli tersev lekayim kol davar. Alma, what do we see? We're reading Rashi 6 lines to the bottom. Afal gav de peri layavdi chalipin liknoy shekinegdoi. Yet Niknehu bechalipin, it itself could be kind of with chalipin shal kli. Mekiyun shemashach bala peiros kli nikne peiros labala kli. So says Rav Papa, just like according to Rav Papa, a peri fruit cannot be the vehicle for chalipin, but it could be kind of with chalipin. Says Rav Nachman, cash is the same thing. Meisvei asked the Gemara 2 lines from the bottom. Says the Brayso Yoimid Bagaroin. Someone is standing in the granary, and he has no cash. He says to his friend, these fruits are given to you as a gift. So he gives his friend fruit, and then what does he do? As we turn over to Memvav Amid Aleph, and then he says, these fruits, which are now no longer his and now are ostensibly his friends, they are mechulal onto the coins that I have in my house. Now, what he's trying to do here is, the halacha is that when you redeem your own peiros meiser sheni, you have to add on an extra chaimish. So what this guy wants to do is he wants to give it to someone else to get out of that extra chaimish. So says the Brayso, he can do it. But now is where the raya comes from. 2 lines down, Memvavam in Aleph. It sounds like only because he has no cash, therefore he could do this. Let's say he had cash. Why does he not transfer ownership of them to his friend through Mashicha? Uparik. And then his friend can redeem the Meiser Sheni. It's the same end result. I have $100. If I redeem my own fruit, I have to add on an extra fifth. That he doesn't want to do. So great, I'll take my $100. I'll give it to you. You now have the $100. You redeem my fruit, and the halacha is now you don't have to add on that extra fifth because you're now redeeming your own fruits. The hachi adif, because this would be better. Why? The havalei nachri, because then he's clearly an outsider, and it's less level of shtick. As Rashi says, he lines out, so now what's the kasha? Articulates the Gemara. If you're going to tell me, if you're going to tell me that you could acquire coins via chalipin, that the coin can't be the vehicle, but you could make an acquisition on the coin via chalipin. Let the other guy be kind of the money, agav sodar, let him redeem. So says the Gemara, seemingly you cannot give over the money to the other guy in such a mannerism. Answers the Gemara, no, that's not the reason. There's a technical problem. The last lay sunder, he doesn't have a handkerchief. Jose, okay, karka, be kind of Tim with land, Leslie karka. Says the Gemara, it says you're standing in your granary. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. The Tana went out of its way to teach us a case of a gavra irteloi, the less slave like klum, a person wearing no clothing that has nothing. Can you so agree with my shirt? Agree with my pants? I don't think give it to you. It's with the item. So says the Gemara, if it said Leslie Sud, that means he's wearing no clothing. So the Tana goes to this convoluted case. Rather, it makes more sense, proves the Gemara, which is a kasha on Rav Papa. Elalav, 12 lines down. The first one line is klum. Shema mina ein matbea nigna bechalipin. Shema mina. Says the Gemara, this is a raya, you cannot be koine peiros via chalipin, and says the Gemara that indeed vaf Rav Papa hadar bei. Even Rav Papa himself, who we started with today, saying that Rav Papa said even though you cannot use the cash as the handkerchief, but you could be koine the cash with a handkerchief. Says the Gemara, Rav Papa himself is chayzer. Rav Papa himself, there was a story that he had 12,000 dinarim in the city of Chayzai. And he gave these coins to Rav Shmuel Baracha, utilizing a kinyan agav through the threshold of his house. At the top, when Rav Shmuel came back, Rav Papa was so happy, he went all the way back to Tavach to meet him. So proves the Gemara that even Rav Papa himself must hold you cannot give over the money with his sodar, because if he held that, he would have done such. Says the Gemara, and guess what? So a whole slew of Amarayim that joined the bandwagon to teach us that no, excuse me, I jumped the gun. No. Let's be careful. We just finished saying ein matbeh nik nebe chalip, and now we're going back. Now we're going back to the discussion of yesterday, which is whether the coin can be the vehicle. Says the Gemara, Ula Ravasi, Rabbi Avchan, Rav Yechlan will hold that the coin, ein matbeh nasa chalipin, the coin cannot be the vehicle for the chalipin. Ask the Gemara, Isvei Rav Abba Ula. Asks Ula again. Ula was the first of this list that held that you cannot utilize the coin. The coin can act as a handkerchief. Asks Rav Abba, someone has a donkey driver workers asking for him for food, for their wages in the marketplace. So the balabayis, the one that has to pay them, says to the shalchani, give me some cash, so that with the cash, I could pay up the workers that will need. Va'ani elecha yafa dinar hu tresas mimois sheyesh li bebesi. And what I will go, va'ani elecha, and I will elevate, I will bring up. What will I bring up? Yefei dinar hu tresas mimois sheyesh li bebesi. From the coins I have at home. So what's the halacha? What is the halacha in this case? Yesh loy ma'ois mutter v'im lav aser. So we have an interesting case over here. This guy is in the marketplace. He has to pay up his workers. So he tells the shulchani, give me some cash. And he says, I'll pay you back. So says the Gemara, if he has some coins in his house, then he's allowed to do this. If not, he's not allowed to do this. So now proves the Gemara Visal Getaitach, according to you, Ula, Ein Matbea Nas Chalipin, if you hold that you cannot utilize the cash as a Chalipin, so what's the problem? Havale Halva. So that, what happens is, so then, even if I have the cash at home, it's a regular halva, it's a regular loan, vaser. How am I allowed to do this? This should be a classical case that I'm borrowing an item and I'm paying him back the dinar, the tresas, and therefore we're having a case that he's paying him back more, which is a classical case of ribis, nothing fancy. He's getting A and he's paying back A plus B. He's paying back extra. So how would that be allowed? Ve'ishtik. Ishtik, says the Gemara, they asked this kasha and Ula was quiet. Amar lei, Rav Abba said to Ula, Dilma aidi v'aidi bebrutata shanu. Teleka alayu tiva. Maybe what we're referring to over here is, we're talking about prutatais. What are prutatais? So we'll look at Rashi, we'll let Rashi explain. Rashi is about 10 lines from the wide lines. Rashi says, Mo'is shal nechayshesh imadayin b'loitzura kina simoin shal kesef. They're copper discs. They're coins that don't have a tzura yet. So it says the Gemara, maybe what's going on over here is we're dealing with prutatais. Maybe what we're dealing with is we're dealing with coins that aren't yet in circulation. That's what the money changer is giving him. And that's what he's going to pay him back. V'idi peirahave. And maybe they both have the status of peri. And because they both have a status, I apologize, stickle camera issues here. Because they both have a status of peri, says the Gemara, that's the reason that what? Umishamachi, that last detail was so important. Which was what? Niknu bechalipin. And that's the reason why they're being kinda with chalipin. Because they're not coins. They're rather these copper discs. Amar le'in. So said Ula, that was the case. And that's the reason why it's not a kasha. Again, Ula was of the opinion that ein matbeya nas chalipin. We had a kasha from this case because if you can't utilize the matbeya as a chalipin, then you have a good old-fashioned ribbis. Responds the Gemara, we're talking about a case where it's not cash. It's brutatais, and that's why you could yes do chalipin with it. Dekanami, says the Gemara, I'll bring you a raya. Dekatani yafa dinner or tresas. V'loikatani yafa utresas. Shema mina, that what? It's a yafa dinner and a tresas. So we see that it's talking about a coin that doesn't yet, it's not yet in the circulation. Rav Ashi Omar says, Rav Ashi lo'ilam bidam, really it's talking about cash. This is the second teretz. Says the Gemara, really we're talking about damim ubrutatis. But because he has money in his own house, and I'm sure everyone was wondering, why was that detail relevant? Who cares? We said if he has money in his own house, he could do it. Says the Gemara, because here is a large Yisoid heter in the world of ribbis. This will come back to us in a very, very large way. B'siyata d'shmaya, that what? We make it that he said, let me until my son comes, until I find the keys. Meaning, because he has his own stuff, we can make it as if he's paying him back already, and therefore there's no ribbis issue. So we had a kasha and ula, and the Gemara deflects the kasha. Says the Gemara Tashema. Let's try again. Kol hanase b'damim, said the Mishnah, 4 lines on the bottom. Anything used as payment for something else, once one guy has been zeich on it, the other party has to pay for the exchange. What does that mean? These cryptic words. Anything which is utilized in payment for something else, it's a matbeya. And we see clearly the matbeya is utilized in the chalipin, a kasha, an ula, a kasha, and all the other amarayim. No kasha as we turn over to Memvav Amid Beis. Kol hanisho madamim ba'acher. You know what the Mishnah meant? Anything which is assessed, which is evaluated as cash on something else. Then, Kivin shezocha zeh, since this guy is zoich on it, nischayev zeh bechalipin, the other one is obligated in the chalipin. Before we see the raya to this, let's take a moment to see the top Rashi. Kol anishim damim ba'acher. Kol sheregilim lo shemaisai kishenaistin aisai damin, that we evaluate when you give cash ba'acher dahainu. Kol hamitaltelim ba'adam l'sitim damim b'chifetz acher tarkon l'shayim nikama yinasnan loy. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about not cash. Mamish, the exact opposite. Talking about something that is utilized in a lieu of cash. Says the Gemara, I'll bring you a raya. Hachi nami mistavra. This is logical in the second line of Memvavim Beis. Midiktani seifa. What did the end of the Mishnah say? The end of that Mishnah discussed performing a chalip in an exchange of different items. Shema mina. So says the Gemara, that's a beautiful raya that we're not talking about cash. The lav matbeya skinon, says the Gemara. There's such a gavaldik teretz l'may desalka daita meikara, and that which we thought originally matbeya my ketzad. How do you learn the end of the Mishnah? Hachi kamar. The end of the Mishnah, you have to insert a little bit of an introductory phrase. O peri nami avdi chalipin. You have to introduce that a peri as well could be utilized as chalipin. Ketzad, how is that possible? That's going to be the case that it works, but it's Mamish talking about a split. The beginning would be talking about matbeya, and then the end is talking about something else. But says the Gemara, that is a raya that Mishnah has nothing to do with a matbeya. Continues the Gemara. So one detail which has been clear so far, which is that any time we're utilizing a regular item, then it could, yes, be used as chalipin. Says the Gemara, like we just saw, shar b'par, chamar b'shar, where you changing one animal for the next, could work. So hanichal Rav Sheshes ta'amar peri avdei chalipin. Says the Gemara, this is all good and dandy. 10 lines down, first one line is peri. According to Rav Sheshes, that he holds that a peri could be utilized as chalipin. But asks the Gemara, Rav Nachman da'amar kli in avul peri loy. Rav Nachman holds you cannot use peris in chalipin. Avul peri loy avdi chalipin. My ketzad. So how is Rav Nachman going to learn the end of that Mishnah when the Mishnah said ichlev shar b'para? Says the Gemara, hachi kamar. This is what the Mishnah means to say. Yesh damim shein kechalipin. That there are times that money is like chalipin. Ketzad hechlev demei shar b'para, demei chamar b'shar. And says the Gemara, so you have to introduce it, talking about the demei, the value. My time with Rav Nachman. Where does Rav Nachman get this? Then that chalipin could only be done with a kli, but not with a peri. Savala Rav Yochanan. Says the Gemara, he holds like Rav Yochanan, which we're going to see in tomorrow's daf. That Amar that says Davar Torah Mo'is Kanis Midaraisa, money is a kenyan. What is the reason why they said that Mishicha is a kenyan? Gezerah Shema Yomer Lohi Nisrfu Chitecha Be'aliyah. It's a din derabanan. There's a concern that if I pay you cash, and with that it's a full-fledged kenyan, and I don't have to do anything else, and then the produce is sitting in your backyard, you have no reason to be careful with that produce. You can let it go up in flames. It's of no relevance to you. So comes along Chazal and they said, no, yes, Meshicha is kind of midaraisa, but midarabanan, yes, Kesef is kind of midaraisa. Midrabanan, you have to do Meshicha. So as long as the merchandise is sitting in your house, it's in your best interest to watch them. Why? Because if the value changes, you're going to be able to back out because I didn't do the Meshicha yet. And therefore, Milsa the Shchicha Gazu Be'Rabbanan, Milsa the Loy Shchicha Loy Gazu Be'Rabbanan, they only made the Gezerah on that which is Shchiach, and therefore, when it comes to a case, in the case of the Mishtan Kedushin of the Mei Chamar Bishar, that's going to be the case that Kesef will work, but in a regular case, you're going to have to do Meshicha. And that's going to be the Shita of Rav Yochanan. That's going to be, of Rav Nachman, Says the Gemara, Reish Lakish, going back to Reish Lakish, Tamar, smack in the middle of the Amid, the first line is Bei Rabbanan. According to Reish Lakish, Damar Meshicha Mifureshes Min HaTorah. Reish Lakish argues. Reish Lakish says that Midaraisa Meshicha works. So Hani Chisav like Rav Sheshes. So now it makes sense if he holds like Rav Sheshes that what you could do Chalipin with Peri Metaritz like Rav Sheshes. So it's very good. Chalipin could be done with Peiros, also not just a Keli, and Meshicha is a regular kidney midaraisa. However, if Reish Lakish at least ever look here on Nachman, Teomar Peri loy avdi Chalipin, Umatbea loy kani, and you can't be kind of with the Matbea. Why? Because Reish Lakish holds that Meshicha is midaraisa and not Kesef. Hechi mitaretz la. Says the Gemara, Al Karchal Rav Sheshes mitaretz must be that Reish Lakish holds like Rav Sheshes. Now it's not necessarily a kasha, but that is how the Gemara ends. We're going to finish the shiur, going back full circle, that we're going to figure out whether a matbeya, number one, matbeya nasa chalipin, nikne bechalipin, etc. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, kol ha-metalton koine zeh. V'amar Reish Lakish v'afilu kis malei mois, bekis malei mois, that you could do a chalipin with a wallet full of cash, for a wallet full of cash, that will be a good kinyan. So what do we see? We see that, number one, you could utilize matbeya as the vehicle for chalipin, and number two, you could be kaineh the matbeya with a chalipin. Says the Gemara, Tirguma Ravacha, Bedinar Anka Vanigra. We're talking about dinar Anka Nigra. What does that mean? It says the Gemara, Echad Shepasalta Malchus, Vechad Shepasalta Medina. We're not talking about regular cash, and therefore there's no riot or discussion at all. We're talking about coins that are disqualified by the government, disqualified by the larger Medina. Usricha, we need to learn both of them. The Ashmina, 10 lines at the bottom. Pasalta Malchus, I would have thought Sagi Klal, you can't use them at all. The kingdom in large says Pasal. Pasalta Medina, if your particular Medina said it's no good, then what? The Sagli Medina Achrit, you can use another Medina, Imakati Matbei, who sells a din of a coin. Vein Matbei, and Igdeva Chalipin, so the Chiddush is it does. Viashin Pasalta Medina, I would have thought Mishat Sagi, Loy Betin of Loy Beferhesia. Can't use it as all. Pasalta Malchus, Sagli Besina. There's always the black market that you can use the coins that the government said they're null and void. Maybe at some level it's a coin. Sricha, that's what we had to learn both cases. Siyat Ishmael, pick it up from Rabbah Ravuna the next year. Emir Hashem.